The small town of Ravenshore was quiet and peaceful, nestled beside a vast, misty lake that had long been the heart of its stories. Fishermen swore the lake held secrets, and old-timers whispered about strange things happening in the dead of night. But for years, life had gone on as usual, until the dog appeared. No one knew where the stray had come from. It wasn't one of the town's pets, nor had anyone seen it wandering before. Yet every night as the sun dipped below the horizon, the dog would take its place by the shore, its dark silhouette still against the rippling water. It didn't bark, didn't chase after the fish that occasionally jumped in the moonlight. It just stared, motionless, as if waiting for something. Tom Miller, a seasoned fisherman who had spent his life on the lake, was the first to take notice. At first, he dismissed it as nothing, just a lost dog looking for scraps. But night after night, the dog returned, always to the same spot, always watching the water with an eerie intensity. Curious, Tom approached the animal one evening, a piece of smoked fish in his hand. "Hey, boy," he said softly, kneeling a few feet away. "What's got you so interested out here?" The dog barely acknowledged him. Its eyes remained locked on the lake, unblinking, as if under some spell. Tom tossed the fish toward it, but the dog didn't even flinch. It just sat there, rigid, its ears flicking slightly at the sound of the gentle waves. The next night, Tom tried again. This time, he brought a bowl of fresh water, thinking maybe the dog was thirsty. But once again, the animal ignored him, its focus unshaken. Word spread quickly through the town. People started coming to see the strange dog that refused to leave the lake. Some called it a bad omen, while others thought it was simply lost and waiting for an owner who would never return. Children dared each other to go near it, but none were brave enough to get too close. One evening, as a thick fog rolled over the lake, Tom noticed something that sent a chill down his spine. The dog wasn't just staring at the water, it was watching a specific spot, the same exact place every single night. Something was out there, and the dog knew it. The strange dog had become the talk of Ravenshore. In the town's small diner, at the bait shop, and along the wooden docks, whispers spread like wildfire. Some believed the dog was waiting for its owner, lost to the depths of the lake. Others, more superstitious, claimed it was a spirit's guardian, warning of something beneath the water. For weeks, the fishermen who worked the lake had watched the dog's behavior with growing unease. Tom Miller, the first to notice it, had seen enough to know this wasn't just an ordinary stray. Every night, without fail, the dog would sit in the exact same spot, staring at the same stretch of water, as if it could see something no one else could. Finally, curiosity got the better of them. One evening, as the mist settled over the lake, Tom and two other fishermen, Joe and Rick, decided to investigate. With lanterns in hand, they made their way to the shore, their boots crunching over the damp earth. The dog was already there, sitting motionless as always, its eyes locked on the dark water. "Let's see what's so interesting out there," Joe muttered, stepping closer. The moment his foot neared the edge of the lake, the dog sprang to life. It let out a deep, guttural growl, low and warning. The men froze. "That's the first time I've heard it make a sound," Rick whispered, gripping his lantern a little tighter. Joe took another cautious step toward the water. The dog's growl turned into a frantic bark, its hackles rising, as it stood between them and the lake. It wasn't just barking, it was trying to stop them. Tom exchanged an uneasy glance with the others. "I don't think it wants us near the water," he said. Joe scoffed. "It's just a stray, probably protecting its territory." But then, the dog did something that made their blood run cold. It didn't just bark, it whined, pacing anxiously along the shore, looking between them and the lake as if pleading with them to understand. Something wasn't right. Rick shined his lantern toward the water, trying to see beyond the misty surface. "Maybe we should come back with a boat," he suggested. Tom swallowed hard, watching the dog, its eyes full of something eerily close to fear. Whatever was in that lake, the dog didn't want them to find it. Joe, ever the skeptic, smirked at the dog's frantic behavior. "It's just a lake," he muttered. Then before Tom or Rick could stop him, he bent down, grabbed a smooth rock, and hurled it into the water. The dog reacted instantly. A deep guttural growl rumbled from its chest. Its eyes locked onto the rippling water, as if expecting something to emerge. Its body tensed, ears pinned back, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. Tom felt a sudden unease settle in his stomach. The night had been quiet, too quiet. The usual sounds of frogs croaking and insects buzzing had vanished, leaving only the distant lapping of the water against the shore. But now, as the ripples from Joe's stone spread across the lake, something changed. The water should have settled quickly. Instead, the ripples didn't fade. They grew. Rick stepped closer, holding up his lantern. "What the hell?" he whispered, eyes narrowing, at the strange movement on the surface. It wasn't just a reaction to the stone. Something beneath was shifting, disturbing the calm lake in a way that felt unnatural. Then came the cold. A sharp, biting chill swept over the shore, cutting through their jackets like a midwinter gust. The men shivered involuntarily, their breath suddenly visible in the dim light. "That's not right," Tom muttered. The temperature had dropped in seconds. The dog let out a sharp bark, backing away from the shore, eyes still fixated on the water. It wasn't just warning them anymore. It was afraid. A low, almost imperceptible sound rose from the lake, a distant, hollow echo like a moan carried on the wind. The fishermen instinctively took a step back, their instincts screaming that something was wrong. The ripples in the water slowed, then stopped entirely. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The lake returned to its eerie stillness, but the sense of unease remained, pressing down on them like an unseen weight. Joe swallowed hard. "Maybe we should head back." No one argued. As they turned away, the dog finally relaxed, but only slightly. It kept glancing back at the water, ears twitching, body still tense. Something had stirred beneath the lake, and whatever it was, had noticed them. Word of the fishermen's unsettling encounter spread quickly through Ravenshore. By the next evening, the town's small diner buzzed with hushed conversations, wary glances exchanged over cups of steaming coffee. "I always knew something wasn't right about that lake," muttered old Mrs. Porter, a lifelong resident. "My father used to say the water holds on to things, and sometimes it doesn't let go." Others chimed in with their own stories, whispers of strange lights flickering over the surface at night, of chilling winds that came and went without warning. One man swore he'd heard voices echoing from the lake's edge when no one else was around. Another recounted how, years ago, a fisherman had vanished without a trace, his boat found drifting empty at sunrise. Intrigued, Tom and Rick decided to dig deeper. They visited the town's small archive, housed in the back of the old library. Dusty newspapers and brittle records revealed unsettling patterns, reports of missing persons dating back decades, all linked to the lake. Most were dismissed as accidents or bad weather, but there were too many to ignore. One article from nearly 50 years ago caught Tom's attention. "Local boy disappears near lake. Only his dog found, waiting at the shore." The eerie parallel sent a chill down his spine. Meanwhile, back at the lake, the dog remained steadfast. No matter the weather, no matter how late into the night, it would take its place at the water's edge, staring into the distance with unshaken focus. It neither ate nor sought shelter. It simply waited. Some villagers tried to lead it away, offering food, whistling, clapping, anything to break its trance. But the dog always returned. It would sit in the exact same spot, its golden eyes locked, onto the dark waters, as if it were watching, or perhaps guarding against something unseen. One night, as a heavy fog rolled over the lake, a young boy named Elliot wandered too close to the shore. The dog, usually silent, sprang into action, barking furiously, blocking his path. The child's parents rushed forward, pulling him away just as the water's surface began to ripple. Slowly, deliberately, as if something beneath had stirred. The town was no longer just whispering. Now they were afraid. Something was in that Lake and the dog was the only one keeping watch. Determined to get answers, Tom, Rick, and Joe decided to return to the lake, not from the shore this time, but from the water itself. Armed with a heavy-duty flashlight and a sense of unease, they took out Rick's old fishing boat under the cover of night. The lake was unnaturally still. The air was thick with mist, and the usual nighttime sounds of croaking frogs and chirping. Crickets were absent. It felt as if the world was holding its breath. The dog, as expected, was sitting at its usual spot on the shore, watching them with unwavering intensity. As they drifted toward the area where the dog always stared, Tom leaned over the edge, shining the flashlight into the water. At first, all he saw was murky darkness, the beam of light barely cutting through the depths. Then, something moved. The boat rocked unexpectedly, sending ripples across the surface. Rick tightened his grip on the oar. "Did you feel that?" Joe scoffed. "Probably a fish." But before anyone could respond, a sound echoed from beneath the boat, low, hollow, almost like a whisper. It didn't belong to the wind, nor did it resemble the gentle lapping of water against wood. It was something else, something alive. The flashlight flickered as Tom adjusted the angle, trying to see deeper. Then just for a moment the beam caught something, a faint glow beneath the surface. It wasn't a reflection. It was something down there, pulsing with an eerie, unnatural light. A chill ran through Tom's spine. He wanted to believe it was just a trick of the water, but the way the glow shimmered, shifting almost deliberately, made his stomach knot with dread. Rick pulled the oars. "We should head back." Joe hesitated, still peering into the water. "What if it's just some kind of—" Before he could finish, the boat lurched again, harder this time. The flashlight slipped from Tom's hand, tumbling into the lake. As it sank, the beam illuminated something enormous moving beneath them, something with form, something that shouldn't be there. The three men sat frozen in horror. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the glow faded, swallowed by the darkness below. The boat rocked gently once more, the lake returning to its eerie calm, but none of them could shake the feeling. Something had seen them, and whatever it was waiting. The moment the boat rocked for the second time, the dog on shore erupted into a frenzy. Its deep, guttural barks shattered the eerie silence, echoing across the lake. The animal, usually silent except for the occasional warning, growl, was now desperate, its eyes wide with panic as it paced along the shore. Tom, still gripping the edge of the boat, swallowed hard. "We need to leave now." Rick didn't argue this time. He grabbed the oars, rowing as fast as he could toward the dock. Joe, still shaken, kept glancing back at the water, as if expecting that glow to reappear beneath them. But as soon as they reached land, the dog sprinted towards them, barking wildly. Didn't just stand in place this time. It lunged at Joe, biting the sleeve of his jacket and tugging hard, trying to pull him away from the lake. "What the hell? Get off me!" Joe shouted, trying to shake free. But the dog wouldn't. Let go. It wasn't attacking, it was begging. Tom stepped forward, heart pounding. "It's trying to tell us something." The dog released Joe, only to run toward Rick next, circling him and nudging his legs with urgency. Then, without warning, it turned and sprinted toward the trees, only to stop and look back at them, waiting, expecting them to follow. A sudden gust of wind tore through the trees, rattling branches and sending a deep chill through the air. The water, which had been calm just moments ago, began to ripple violently. The once muted sky rumbled with distant thunder. Rick wiped his forehead, suddenly drenched in sweat despite the cold. "We shouldn't be here." Joe, for once, was speechless. The storm was coming out of nowhere, thick clouds rolling in unnaturally, fast swallowing the moonlight. Then a deafening crack of thunder boomed overhead. The wind howled and the lake's surface churned as if something beneath was stirring it from below. The dog barked one last time, sharp, urgent. Then it bolted toward the trees. Tom didn't hesitate. "Run!" The fishermen didn't need to be told twice. They turned on their heels, sprinting after the dog just as the first droplets of icy rain struck the ground. Behind, determined to uncover the truth, Tom, Rick, and Joe returned to the lake the following night, this time with better equipment. The fear from their last encounter still lingered, but curiosity had won out. They brought a portable sonar scanner, hoping to get a clearer look at whatever was lurking beneath the surface. The dog was already at its usual spot, watching them with wary eyes. It didn't bark this time, but its body remained tense, as if preparing for the worst. "Let's make this quick," Rick muttered as they pushed the boat into the water. The lake was calmer than before, eerily so. The storm from the night before had left a heavy mist hovering over the surface, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Tom powered up the sonar scanner, its screen flickering as it mapped the depths below. For a few moments, nothing unusual appeared, just the usual readings of the lake bed, a few scattered fish. Then the screen glitched. A large, shifting mass emerged on the display, deeper than any fish should be. It moved slowly, deliberately. Joe leaned in. "That's too big to be a fish." Rick adjusted the scanner's settings, trying to get a clearer image. The figure pulsed and shifted again, something massive, something alive. Then the scanner shut off. The boat rocked, and the water rippled, though there was no wind. "We need to go," Tom said, his voice barely above a whisper. But before they could turn back, Joe's voice wavered. "You guys remember the old legends?" Rick shot him a sharp glance. "Not now, Joe." "No, listen," Joe insisted. "The stories about the lake, the ones the old folks used to tell about something down there. They said people would go missing, boats would vanish, and the only witness was always a dog." Tom's stomach turned. He had heard those tales growing up, dismissed them as superstition, but now, with the sonar readings, the eerie occurrences, and the dog's relentless warnings, he wasn't so sure. Just then, a deep, guttural noise vibrated through the water, a sound that didn't belong to any known creature. The dog, still on shore, let out a single mournful howl. Whatever was in the lake wasn't just a legend, it was real. Despite the warnings, the dog's frantic behavior, the eerie sounds from the depths, the strange sonar readings, Tom, Rick, and Joe made a bold decision. They would dive into the lake themselves, equipped. With wetsuits, oxygen tanks, and safety ropes tied securely to the boat, they prepared for their descent. The lake was colder than expected, an unnatural chill seeping through their gear as they sank beneath the surface. The light from their underwater flashlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the murky water and flickering beams. Rick led the way, keeping a tight grip on the guide rope. The deeper they went, the heavier the silence became. Schools of fish darted past them, disappearing into the shadows. Then, just when they were about to turn back, Tom spotted something, an opening in the rocky lake bed, a cave. The entrance was wide, dark, and foreboding, but something about it drew them in. Strange, ancient markings lined the walls, barely visible under centuries of sediment. Joe wiped some of the grime away, revealing carvings of creatures, long serpentine figures with glowing eyes, surrounding what looked like a human figure. Then, Tom's flashlight caught something else, half buried in the silt at the cave's entrance, a wooden chest. Rick swam toward it, brushing away the dirt with cautious hands. The wood was rotting, but the iron hinges were still intact, corroded, but sturdy. It was old, centuries old. Joe gestured frantically, signaling that they needed to surface. They had been down too long, and something about the cave, the carvings, the chest felt wrong. Just as they started to ascend, a deep, vibrating sound rumbled through the water. The cave walls seemed to tremble. The light around them flickered, as something massive stirred in the darkness beyond. Tom yanked the rope, signaling an emergency ascent. As they kicked toward the surface, Rick took one last look down, just in time to see a shadow move inside the cave. Something was awake. As soon as they broke through the surface, gasping for breath, the dog was there, barking wildly, pacing along the shore. It knew. The lake had been hiding something all along, and now they had disturbed it. The dog didn't stop barking until the fishermen reached the shore, pulling off their diving masks and gasping for air. It ran ahead of them, pausing every few steps as if urging them to follow. Tom exchanged a look with Rick and Joe. After what they had just seen, something moving in that cave, they had no choice but to trust the animal. The dog led them through the misty forest, weaving between trees with a sense of purpose. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a small weathered cabin near the lake's edge. Smoke curled from the chimney, and an old man sat outside, staring into the distance. His wrinkled face was partially hidden by a thick scarf, his eyes shadowed under the brim of a tattered hat. As they approached, the dog stopped, sitting by the man's feet like a loyal guardian. The old man exhaled slowly, as if he had been expecting them. "You went into the lake," he said, his voice rough like aged wood. It wasn't a question. Rick hesitated before nodding. "We saw something in a cave." The old man sighed. "You disturbed it." Joe shifted uncomfortably. "What is it?" The man ignored the question and placed a gentle hand on the dog's head. "This one has been waiting for years," he said. "It belonged to a fisherman, one who never returned." The air grew colder. "My brother," the man continued, voice heavy with sorrow. "He was taken by the lake." Tom swallowed hard. "Taken?" The old man's eyes met his. "That lake has secrets. The stories you've heard, they're real. My brother and I fished there when we were young. One night he went out alone. Never came back." He glanced down at the dog. "This one never stopped waiting." Silence hung between them. The fisherman felt the weight of what they had uncovered. The truth buried beneath the water, hidden. For decades, Joe finally spoke. "What happens now?" The old man exhaled. "Now? You pray you didn't wake it." The dog, still motionless, let out a low whimper. The lake behind them remained still, deceptively quiet. But deep beneath the surface, something had awakened. Determined to uncover the full truth, the fishermen decided to return to the lake one last time. This time, they carried stronger lights, better equipment, and a reinforced diving plan. Whatever was down there, they were going to find it. But the dog didn't agree. As soon as they neared the boat, it barked wildly, circling them in desperation. It pulled at Joe's pant leg, whined at Rick, and blocked Tom's path. Its frantic energy was unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't just warning them, it was begging them to stay away. Then the water began to move. A deep, unnatural rumble came from beneath the surface, sending violent ripples across the lake. The boat rocked, and the air grew icy cold. And then, it rose. A massive, shadowy form burst from the depths, sending waves crashing against the shore. It was impossible to see clearly, but its sheer size was overwhelming. A dark mass covered in algae and the weight of centuries loomed above them, as if the lake itself had come alive. Tom stumbled back, his heart pounding. Rick and Joe froze, unable to process what they were seeing. Then, the roar. A deafening, otherworldly sound shattered the air, vibrating through their bones. The fishermen turned and ran. They didn't need to know what it was. They didn't want to know. They barely made it to the trees when the water exploded again, sending their boat hurtling into the air before vanishing into the churning lake. Then, silence. The water calmed, as if nothing had happened. The lake once again was still. Whatever had awakened had returned to its slumber. The dog sat at the shoreline, watching as if it had expected this all along. For the first time in years, it didn't stare at the lake with longing or worry. Instead, it let out a slow sigh and lay down, its job finally done. The fishermen, shaken and breathless, exchanged glances. They had come searching for answers, but the lake had made its choice. Some mysteries were never meant to be solved.